Can you believe this? GB News have got the cheek. There is nowhere to hide. GB News is here to stay. I think they're showing off here with this whole, Jacob Rees-Mogg thing and the threat of being taken off air. The fact is, no one could watch GB News. Everyone could just turn it off and not watch it, and they could just be broadcasting to no one, but it'd still be there because it only exists because of sponsors. It exists because money is being thrown at it from people who have got far too much money, gross excess of money, profits from pies, pasties, products, advertising, a gross excess of stuff that is causing illness, and they're just throwing money at a studio. No one could watch it. No one might not watch it. They could just be broadcasting to no one, which makes you think of, all respect to Jules Holland. I'm not saying that programme's rubbish, the Hootenanny programme, but, even if you turn the cameras off in that studio, it's still, them and their guests and audience having a ball. Good for them, right? They still listen to music, they still have music, they still have a ball, they still have a good time. You don't actually need the cameras, good for them. The thing with GB News is there's really not that much going on in the studio if you turn the cameras off, other than them having to turn up for work, and we don't actually need it. The thing about GB News is people are finding out about things through groups, through Facebook groups, which are free. They don't actually, we don't have to pay for it to go on there. Sure, there's some advertising and so much and that on Facebook, but to be honest, the advertising doesn't really get in the way on Facebook, to be honest. This is what I said to the groups. We don't need GB News. GB News needs the guests and needs the people, or it can't have a programme, and it actually needs events happening. I think that particularly with the Stop ULEZ campaign, the number of groups on there and the massive amount of people in the groups, everyone's just reporting on what's happening anyway and uploading their own videos. When it's free, you don't have to pay for it. When people are reporting on site, filming things as it happens and discussing it, why do you even need all these excess funded studios with massive amounts of money? I'd like to see GB News prosecuted for the whole Jacob Rees-Mogg thing. He's not meant to be on there. It's illegal. He's gaining himself an electoral advantage, regardless of whether he chooses to stand again. He's got the potential to stand again, and the law says that if anyone has the potential possibility to stand and gain an advantage in an election, then they're not allowed to be presenter if they're planning to or in the potential to. Mogg is an advert for himself, and also he's in control of political discussion. It's impossible for that person to not push his whole views and his persona on that programme. And apparently, according to the law, it could be the owner of the channel who actually gets prosecuted and liable. And also if Mogg gets prosecuted, he can't vote. He can't vote for 5 years or stand in elections or go into Parliament again. The thing about GB News is the set is terrible. I've never seen anything as terrible in my entire life. The set of GB News is so bad style and taste. The studio, the lighting, the type of programmes are discussed, the attitude of the people. It's just like Chat Magazine. It's like Smash Magazine. It's like It's like getting the newspapers and the magazines, the worst of culture, of which all of society has, BBC Panorama and the Open University and the news on the BBC, I used to not mind it as a kid. I used to think there were some responsible people in the country. But, what the newspapers and the magazines evolved into, all it is smut and chat about chat shows, basically like that teacher. In fact, Lawrence Fox was talking to a head school teacher that the intelligence level in the staff room has gone downhill so much and they don't want to discuss intellectual subjects. All they want to talk about is X Factor and, simpleton stuff. That is an example, but that's Lawrence Fox actually speaking to someone. But then, actually, Lawrence Fox was removed from GB News. But you've still got all these people, Tice, Farage, meant to be responsible politicians, in these programmes that are centred around a very loose women's style, just magazine and newspaper, chit-chat, attitude, and I don't think it's good for society. Another amount of money that's thrown into it, that you just don't need it. We've proved that through YouTube and through Facebook, the overheads for all these big productions are a complete and total waste of money. It's like basically what happened to, I think it's as big as, vinyl records and CDs. We don't have them anymore. You don't need them because they invented the mobile phones. You've got MP3s, they don't take up any space. You can, hold thousands, hundreds of thousands of songs on a disk drive. So what's the point in having a CD or a record? People only now have a CD or vinyl if they're a DJ or for prestige, or if they just want it as a collector's item for the novelty value of it. It's not actually... And CDs less so than vinyl records. Vinyl records, people actually, mix and DJ them. But for a main medium, and look what happened to the profits from artists. Now people release songs and they aren't really getting hardly any money at all. People streaming songs. It's changed the whole music industry. You've got to be... still selling loads of records. I mean, the number one Christmas song in the download charts, which was like a charity one with a grandma in it, I went onto YouTube and they didn't even have 1,000 followers on there, and they didn't even have hardly 1,500 views, and that was the number one in the download charts. People definitely weren't going on there to its main channel and watching the video. That's for sure. I think that GB News are bluffing. And also the nowhere to hide boast. This is what one of the ladies from the Stop ULEZ groups went on the other day on GB News. And, when she was on the way there, she was reluctant to go on because she knows that the mainstream, it's not a good idea to sell out to the mainstream. And she said that, I don't really want to have to go on to GB News, but we need to do something to promote the campaign, which, she ended up going on there. It was an alright interview, really, but I don't think they needed to go on there. They didn't need to go on there because there's such a massive amount of following through the groups, 85,000 people in one group, and then there's another big group as well. I think there's one with more people than that, and then altogether there are hundreds of actual groups for various different areas for ULEZ anyway. So, and she said, the lady who went on said that, people are knowing everything about her and it's a bit odd and weird. The fact is that Tucker Carlson has admitted that the media had been spying on him. And then we've got this whole thing where Piers Morgan was, hacking Prince Harry. With my campaign, they're boasting about things that they know about me that I've done and dropping it into certain things. Although I have had my campaigns in the newspaper, so I did draw attention to it, but I've been trying my best to not be in the newspapers or have anything to do with them other than having to promote the campaign. I was really in the same position as that Stop ULEZ woman because, you have to do something. But then again, with all the Facebook groups, do you really even need to use the newspapers anymore? But the worst thing is there is a big culture of hacking. It goes all the way back to, probably before Elton John. But then there's a premise that it goes back to when they invented the telephone and they put telephone cables into all the police chiefs' houses, and not just for the police chief to telephone in, but also to keep tabs on him and keep watch on their chiefs, What right do these media people have to hack our phones and, spy on us? And with AI now and things like that, there are lots of weird things happening, like things that you say or do when you take a photo of something or film something and don't even upload it. Now Google know about it, and they're even showing off and reflecting adverts back to you about what you've done and what you've been up to in ads. So they've got the data, I've even been past the TV, and this is where, you know, you get into the realms of what Tucker Carlson's been talking about, you know, where the media have been, you know, watching all the things that he's been doing, even though he is a media person himself. You know, this Alex Jones guy has been getting into some really controversial and weird stuff. I don't agree with everything that Alex Jones says, but, you know, there gets a point where there's been a few times where I've walked past the TV and it's just like basically come out with exactly what I'm doing. Like, I got this thing in my hand and I tilted it, right, to look at it for a certain angle. And the TV program guy just said something about tilting something. And I don't, it's not like I don't watch the TV. I'm not near the TV. I'm only near the TV if I happen to walk past that room. Because otherwise, I don't watch the main television stations or have anything to do with them unless I happen to be walking past the other room that people are watching in. And I'm absolutely certain this is when you get into really, really strong arguments, because they can start trying to make out that there's something wrong with you and you're not thinking right. But from the basis of the whole Big Brother Watch program and the fact that they actually have an industry that enjoys and specializes in studying, watching what people are doing in rooms, in buildings, in houses, and comment on it, and even like trying to get them to do things like send delivery guys around with certain things to see what the reactions are, and all manner of other things, specialising in voyeurism and interacting with people inside a room, a situation room, basically, like, you know, like on Tom Jones, you know, burning down the house and they've got the crossbow bolts all facing into the studio, you know. It's that situation now, and this is why AI and all this stuff, the government wanting to do facial recognition and the whole Big Brother Watch surveillance, is highly controversial. When, if they're queuing people, if they've got the ability to queue people, you know, I mean, what happens if they can, you know, use AI to change or adapt any television broadcast, so just to change the words of what the presenter says, you know, based on AI seeing what you're doing. So if the AI sees that you're doing something there, like, you know, crouch down, then the AI could, you know, change the television, because, you know, now they've got all these deep fakes and they can just literally, you know, anything that anyone could possibly say in their exact voice can replicate it. They could just make it so they say what you're doing. And then you get really into the mental state of, like, you know, these people know exactly what I'm doing all the time. And then it changes your behaviour, because then you're adjusting your behaviour to an observer. And this is when you get into acting legislation. The act, life's all an act, you know. If you're out in the forest, you are acting in accordance to the surroundings. You know, you act and react to trees, to wild animals, to things that are really there. But if you're in an environment like a house, in a room, and you've got all these digital devices that are observing you, and they can control your behaviour by what they say, you know, you're being controlled by household names, you're being controlled by corporate entities, you're being controlled by AI, you're being controlled by something more than your own friends or family or guests. And this is the whole thing, you know. Fair enough. If you are just, you know, on a Sunday sat in a pub with your friend, and your friend says, okay, you know, shall we go to this place or that place? And you say, let me think. Okay, shall I decide? Yes. Yes. You and your friend have come to agreement in what you're doing, right? But that's your friend who you know. When it's like strangers, people who you don't know, who aren't your friend, who pose as your friend, household names, who seem to take more priority than your family, you know, don't buy what your, you know, family wants you to buy or do. Do what the celebrity says. Do what Philip Schofield says. Do your house up like Philip Schofield's set. Go to the places on holiday that they say. Bake the things that they say to bake and cook. Live like them. Do what they say. And even, you know, commenting on what you're actually, you know, when you're crouching down, when you're stood up, and they're commenting on it, you know. it gets to the point where it's a real head fuck. It's a real mind fuck. And the basis of it is legislation. The Act. Irish Sunak will write this and you will all comply and act this way. Now you will all act this way. And the way they're writing it out at the moment is that we act because we obey them in the factory all day and they make all the money and the profits out of it and they get all the award, all the credit for it. And then when they're sick of us going to their expensive shops in Los Angeles, then because they convert all the profits to Jeff Bezos and all business goes through Jeff Bezos and everything's delivered to their homes, then all those expensive, even they have to sacrifice, Chanel and, all these, expensive aftershave and, shops or whatever they are, all go bust because they've sacrificed, we sacrifice our overheads now and all our buildings, Savile Row gets sacrificed, maybe even Wall Street ends up getting sacrificed, because they just do it online, and get delivery people to do it, Amazon people. But what happens then is, you've got all these buildings like Robert F. Kennedy's been talking about in Los Angeles that are derelict, what used to be prestige shops. But you've got loads of homeless people with nowhere to live because the house prices in those areas have gone through the roof and people who live there can't afford to buy houses there and they're on the streets. Although maybe they've got a population problem as well. But then what happens when they're on the streets is that, they've got, what do? They have to sit down somewhere, then they're not allowed to sit on the floor. Then they're not allowed to sit on benches. Then they make the benches so you can't lay down on benches. They make the streets prickly and sharp so you can't be there. In fact, they're trying to get rid of the people that they've priced out of the houses, and then all the people who've made money, aren't even going to the shops because they do it online. They don't even want to interact with the towns. And then Elon Musk is going around saying everyone is in a trance like zombies, But yeah, Elon Musk is the one who's knocking out all these expensive cars and things like that, and all this tech, which has caused all the shops to close down and people to buy stuff and do stuff online and not interact. Why isn't Elon Musk, coming up with, park benches that turn into houses or God knows what, You don't see Elon Musk saying, Maximus the Merciful, hey, it's Elon Musk, hey, don't worry, I'll buy them all houses, don't worry, put it on my tab, RFK. Oh, it's Alex Jones and Elon Musk, hey, put it on Elon's tab, This is the thing. Why didn't they come up with some genius idea where all those derelict shops have come available for all homeless people to go in and sit down in those so they don't have to get, kicked off the prickly park bench? Why isn't Jeff Bezos saying, I've put all these shops out of business because now they're all running the businesses through my online website. So what I'll do is we'll convert all these with all those excess profits we've got in as excess disposable trillions that Charles is boasting about. Why don't we turn them all into day centres for homeless people in LA and they can go all sit in there because we don't want them sat in the streets or lay down on the benches outside, and we'll even put them air conditioning in, and they can't even sit down on the floor. Why wasn't that on Nancy Pelosi's priority list? Why wasn't Nancy Pelosi's priority investment list like, hey, look at all the money I'm making on the stock market. I'm Nancy Pelosi. I'm a genius. Hey, we don't have to make it illegal to sit down on the floor in LA or make prickly park benches because we're going to convert the entire Savile Row Street that's shut down, Wall Street, into day centres for homeless people. The genius. But no. They couldn't give a flying fuck about them. This is the point. This is what RF Kennedy's getting onto now, But we've got to put up with, GB News, here to stay. Why don't they invite all the homeless people into the studio? What we've got is, you don't need GB News. It is a waste of time and money because with Facebook groups and YouTube, we are the news for free. Right? Get a mobile phone and start filming. Upload. Right? All these sponsors, all these Tory donors, right, who are funding GB News, lights, camera, action, studio, money, right? Why aren't they putting, hey, well, we'll build houses for homeless people and, not in the areas where we don't want them. Or, let's, build day centres for homeless people. You know what GB News want to do? Why don't they invite all homeless people into the freaking studio, and then they will be talking about prickly rebellious, it's XR. They've come into the studio. Ooh, prickly Extinction Rebellion trolls or swampies, spiky swampies in the studio. Ooh, what's Jeremy Vine going to do with his, silk gold, snooker vest on, waistcoat on, let's have all the homeless people in, and James Whale, invite them all into the studio. You could probably fill that. In fact, the amount of space they've got behind them in some of these channels, all the massive, vast open spaces of screens with all the news on the screens, they could have employed all the homeless people, You could pay all the homeless people to be media spies, gathering intel on everyone for the news stories, other than the fact that they're already using everyone's mobile phones to gather intel for free by listening in. In fact, they're using us all as Muppets to gather intel on ourselves and not paying us for it. Why don't we start charging Piers Morgan? Oh, you use my phone to gather information on me. That's £10, please, Piers Morgan. In fact, I want £10,000. Why doesn't Prince Harry send him a bill? Apparently Prince Harry can't even get expenses back. Apparently Prince Harry he's going to struggle to get expenses for his court case. Why doesn't he send them a charge for using his mobile phone? Oh, you use my mobile phone to listen to me. That's £100,000. It's my phone. I'm going to charge you for it because it's my phone. It's my phone. Why doesn't Prince Harry just say, the genius? Oh, well, I've got an idea. You listen to me on my mobile phone. EE or T-Mobile are charging me, money for this phone line, but you use my phone to listen in to me, so I'm charging you money for it, Why didn't Prince Harry do that? So it's my phone, why didn't send Piers Morgan a bill? Use of mobile phone to gather intel on me, whether it's legal or not, you can still charge him for it, so you owe me this money. And then why don't you take him to court and say, use my mobile phone, it's mine, I want some money from him, Why don't we start charging these people when they're listening in to us, charging them money for the use of our phone, Write a policy in your notepad. Hereby, in my notepad, I write this policy. You must, if you listening to me through my mobile phone, consent. Why don't you charge Google? Like Google are making up all these clauses and policies and laws. They're just doing what they want to us. Now we're updating the app, terms and conditions. You have to accept it or you can't use it. Well, why don't we have some terms and conditions? Why don't we write terms and conditions? They think that Google are the only people who can write terms and conditions, right? It's effectively, like I said before, walking down the street. You don't walk down the street and then some stranger goes, sir, consent, let me slap you. Consent, sir, consent. Spin around 3 times, sir. Lay down on the floor, sir, consent. Do as I say, consent. This is it. All you have to do is get your notepad out, right? And write up a policy on your notepad and say, if you gather any information or intel on me and use it for advertising through my phone, I'm charging you £100 per kilobyte of data that you use of my information to Google, right? That'll stop them. And who says you can't do that? You are an entity. You are an entity with a phone, right? And it's your life. So when you write a document, you could have a digital signature on every document you have and every video you record as you're recording the video. All digitally sign every document on this phone. I'm charging people for using it. This is the thing that Zuckerberg's doing. They're saying that Zuckerberg's getting information on us all, right? And saying that he owns it. But that's on the basis that you're a pleb, that you're retarded, that you're a potato, that you yourself can't actually make up a policy in your own house, like no shoes in this house, please. Says on the door, policy, no shoes off. This is it. The thing is that Neil Mohan and Sergey, whatever, Google team, they don't actually understand that you actually are a legal entity and you can come up with your own policies that apply to you. Like, I'm charging anyone who uses my data, whether I'm aware of it or not, £100 a kilobyte. So then as Google are gathering information on you and using it for ads, you're charging them for it. So you can actually make money out of them making money out of you. They claim that they're using ads, for the thing, and say, well, I'm charging you for it. You could do that. It's doable. And this is the type of thing that Black Belt Barrister and Joe Lamont should be doing. But seeing that they like this whole Google and YouTube culture, no one's doing anything creative with the law. They're letting us get abused and whooped by these oligarchs, right? When it's just simple, this is my house, this is my phone, I'm creating a legal policy, we're not the only people who can make up policy. This is the thing. Google's not the government. Google isn't the government. Start charging them. Start charging them money for using your data for their ads and then see where it gets them. Right? It's about time someone did something about it. And then we'll see where all the money's coming from, all these studios that they're paying for, lavish studios, all this ridiculous backgrounds, Stephen Fry, these people get almost no respect. Makes me so angry.